So there is shortages in those areas. But I also think that when we overpraised ourselves at some stage, the way we said Zimbabweans are doing wonders all over the world. Okay? But I had an opportunity to also go to other countries where I met people from other countries. And I started asking the people, because I did have an opportunity to go with the Minister of Higher Education to the US for almost 30 days. And when we were trying to lure the diasporans back during the GNU, I was part of that team with some of the people from the private sector. The question that kept on coming was, are we really the best in the world? Okay. And one of the things that you need to probably know is that if you want to solve a problem, you must be very honest with yourself about the current status of whatever problem you have before you can come up with a solution. Yes, we do have brilliant people doing wonders all over the world. The challenge is that there are also equally many Nigerians and equally many Ghanaians. I saw that at the World Bank. That are doing extremely well, but we spotlight our own. Okay? When we have a Zimbabwe in South Africa doing wonders, one person we celebrate, which is good. But I think let's not make it policy that we do have brilliant people all over the world. Zimbabweans are nice, they're doing very well. But for us to compete, remember, we need to win. And we are competing globally. We need to be honest with ourselves. We do have elite skills, but they're very few. You can count the people that you can say globally, these are the people that are doing wonders for Zimbabwe. Most of the people are just generally average people. You and I, doing the normal things that normal people do. That's the rest of us. But I do think that there are other countries that are doing extremely well, Malaysia and many other countries that are doing extremely well because of deliberate policies that they had. So that's a fact that we may need to reflect. I'm not saying change your mindset, just reflect on it. The other issue that we may need to take note is that career guidance, like the PSS said, is not happening. I do career guidance assessment, largely because I'm a psychologist, a registered psychologist. But the people that come for career guidance most of the time are white and Indians. Those are my clients. A few elite blacks that are starting to see the value now of career guidance. So what is happening in most cases, we have done, I think since I got registered in 2001, I've been doing career guidance up to now. Test roughly about 10 to so a week, but coming from the other side of town, not this other side of town, for a reason. So when you look at that, you notice that most of us want our kids to do exactly what we have done ourselves. That's why you find traditionally teachers produce teachers, engineers produce engineers, doctors produce doctors. But we are forcing our kids to go into a path that they don't want. And some of them have started revolting. I've heard sad stories with parents who come and say, you know what, I sent this guy to France. And look, they are back. They came back with nothing. I said, what happened? Very brilliant young man. And we then assess. I also do post university assessment where people go there, fail, or they find themselves struggling. You assess them, you find, they want to be a musician, but they were doing engineering. Brilliant. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you are brilliant in a particular subject, you must then follow it. It doesn't follow. Most of you have got skills or areas where you're technically superior than most average people. But you have not followed that because that's not where your passion is in those areas. So you need to make sure that you follow something, because you'll be doing this on a daily basis every day for the rest of your life till you die. And you can imagine, if I were to take you now, most of you say you are a nurse starting from here, this conference. Some of you will even run away. Whether you'll be bored for the rest of your life. There are people in jobs that are going to be bored for the rest of your life. There's no way you can give value in a role where you don't like the job. We are in jobs where we want the money, but not the job. most of the time. So we find a lot of our young people in jobs where they are looking for survival. They are looking for money, but they actually don't love those careers that they're in. At some stage, we assessed an accountant. They were to use that. So this, I used to work with this gentleman at NSDR. So they are now a director. Someone said, I've got my mind in it. So she went into university. She's failing, but she's got 14 points. But she's failing accounts. We assessed them. We found that they really didn't like the accounts. They wanted to talk to people. Their personality was inclined to talk to people. They said, so why did you choose accounts? I said, I was forced. They said, that's where the money is in accounts. Okay. But I think parents also make a mistake that the money does not stay permanently with any particular career. You can check. Okay. There are cycles. You find that ICT people stage. I think when it's going towards the Y2K, remember the demand for ICT skills. It went down, now it's up again. The rest, the same applies in all professions. The issue of supply and demand still applies. So my advice is that when you're building skills, I would, except for very few professions, I would not recommend that you focus specifically at producing a graduate who knows lawyering, for example, if there's any word like that, who knows accounts, who knows HR. I want you to produce a graduate who is versatile. Let me tell you why I'm saying that. Okay, when I left university, I joined Barclays as a trainee. I was training in banking and psychology, and I didn't like it when I joined. But in the same group, we were 18 of us. There were people who had done Shona, but they were training as bankers. There were people who had done biomedical sciences, but they were training as bankers. There were people who had done engineering, they were training as bankers. That's the graduate that you want, the graduate that is flexible. I'm sure you have noted some of your best HR people in this country are actually engineers. You may actually not know it. Some of your best bankers are actually engineers. Okay? Some of your best bankers have done agriculture. Because they have not narrowed their career to a particular area, except in very few, maybe medicine and a few other engineering areas. The rest of us in the liberal arts, social sciences must be flexible enough to be able to say, yes, I did HR, but why can't I be a marketer? We had the one guy who did psychology. He was one of the best marketers in this country. Okay? We have exported some of our best HR people, if you know them, during our time, who are actually all over, looking after some of the big corporate, they're engineers, those people. Some of them have done medicine, but they're in HR. But the problem is that we are also creating professions that are limited, that are ring-fencing their profession in order for other people not to get in. Okay? And I don't subscribe to that. I know that some of them is by law because of the risk that is there, but most of the professions, all of you can do the job. And why are we limiting our kids, even in terms of developing the skills that we have? The other challenge is that we did a survey in 2018 where we were going to graduates to find out how long they took for them to be able to find a job. We did find some were getting an average of 2.5 years to find a job. But the longest that we found was 7.5 years with someone not testing any form of employment. Okay? And when you look at that, you then realize that when someone stays for 7.5 years without employment, the skills decay. So when you look at skills decay, it actually happens even in the training that you're doing in your own organization. Our brains can only hold whatever we have learned if we don't put it into practice for 3 months. That's the average, okay? Especially for cognitive skills, things that you are learning using your brain. The hands-on, it takes much longer to decay. So number one, any graduate who then stays 3-4 years without finding employment, they basically need to go back to school. That's the correct position. Literally going back to school, which means that if you're taking them, you're going to start from fresh to teach them. That's what it means. Most of them know zilch after 3 years. If you are forgetting after 3 months, imagine 7 years. They did agriculture, but they know nothing about agriculture now. They probably know more about the mishikashika that they're running. Okay, so that's the challenge. The same applies currently. A lot of organizations are wasting a lot of money training. So you send someone for supervisory training, but they will never supervise anyone. So what is the point? You send someone for Excel training, but they don't have a computer. So you give them the computer to go and train Excel, they come back to the work, they don't practice Excel. So look at the loss, the amount of money. I want you to reflect if you're in any organization. How many people are going for training that they don't use? We did an experiment some time back. So we trained people on Excel. We didn't tell them about this experiment. We just wanted to find out. So I said, I will come back to you and see if you're using the skills. After 4 months, we went back and say, do you still remember VLOOKUP and how to use VLOOKUP? Says, what is that? Okay, where did we learn that? You see now, they'd already forgotten, completely forgotten. That's the challenge, that we underestimate the training decay that is happening when industry organizations are investing huge amounts of money in training, but that same training is being lost significantly through training decay. So the other challenge that I also see is that, the skills that we were talking about and the changes that are happening due to technology, they are there, yes. But for people who are versatile, who are flexible, the way I described, they will find themselves very useful anytime. They are not overtaken by, both technology will be there, developments will be there, climate change, all these things, changes are coming. There are people who will fit in there very easily. Let me tell you a story. So when I was in university, I had chosen to do, soon after A-level, I then went to look for temporary teaching, which was the normal, because I also wanted the money. So I went for temporary teaching in our rural areas there for 3 months. When I got there, I loved the money. I loved the teaching. I was teaching geography. So when it was time to go to university, I had already applied, but I applied without knowing anything. I just filled in. I was asking people, "She's not going to write a degree. She wants to feel like she write." So I applied. I had put psychology. So they gave me psychology as first choice. I was so disappointed. I said, "I don't want this. I don't even know what they're talking about." So I went to want to change my degree program to what I had put as number 3 that time, because I had not taught. I had put geography. I wanted to be a geography teacher. So I struggled, went to, I think the chairman was Dr. Chiome at that time. They said, you can't change. So after being disappointed, I saw one of my cousins who then said, don't worry, I think this degree will be useful. It depends on you as an individual. I just dismissed him. I said, okay, let me go and sleep. After that, I was not attending lectures initially, occasionally, so that I don't get terminated. So, but after about almost 9 months or so, I then met someone who said, look, this is a good degree in the right hands. Okay, if you know what you're doing, this is a good degree than what you wanted to choose. So I reflected on it, started reading and everything. So first year I was getting those 3. Then from second year, I was getting 2-1 first class, 2-1 first class, because I was now much more interested because I'd see what was happening. But in second year, what I then did is I then said, what skills do I need for myself, not for anyone else, for myself to be useful? I said, I need to learn the computer. We were using DOS, Lotus Notes that time. So I went to the computer center, had the use it and learned that on my own. Others were laughing at the time. I also went to the Department of Statistics to learn SPSS, and which is a package of social sciences, on my own initiative, and to pay some of the tutors there to help me both sides. So when I left university, in our class, none could beat me on computers and using the SPSS package at the time. Okay? But when I then joined and went into the professional world, when I joined Barclays, I never used those because I was just carrying checks from one box to another for 6 months or 3 months. I left and joined BHP. That's when I started using my skills, more so when I then joined Ernst & Young. I'm giving you this background so that you understand that sometimes lecture, it's not the university sometimes that must teach people what are useful skills. You must decide for yourself. What do I need in order for me to get far ahead? Which I decided on those 2 occasions. And even now, I don't think there's very few people who beat me on computer and AI, even those that are technically gifted. Now, as we speak now, to use AI, I took a deliberate effort to say, let me learn on my own. And when you are self-taught, you master the things much better. You don't forget them. So, as we develop the skills, we are putting too much emphasis on the classroom and not too much emphasis on self-learning for the individual. They must decide what are the skills that they require. Here's what I found. I've been interviewing people, graduate trainees, CEOs across the globe since, let's just say, when I was senior enough, 2001, up to now. One of the gaps that you see in the skills that we have is that even as you speak, people struggle with the computer. Do you know that? If you are honest, even in your own organization, in the computer monogenetic. Just putting a password, imagine putting a password. People struggle, senior people struggle, including graduates. They know WhatsApp, including the senior people left, right, and center, but they don't know how to use Excel. They don't know how to use PowerPoint. Is even worse. People don't know how to use PowerPoint. Let me show you with mine so you can see how to use PowerPoint. Okay. So I was just teaching some people that when you're using PowerPoint, you don't put all those background colors. The brain looks at the the screen in the white background much better than any decoration that you put. You see, my presentation doesn't have any of those. Because you take away the attention of people from the presentation to that. So that's a challenge. There is very little happening in terms of people upskilling themselves, including graduates. You know, sometimes when we hire graduates, one of the three things they struggle with the computer. Graduates, university graduates, even the recent ones, they struggle. They can't do a presentation. Communication skills terrible. They can't do a presentation. The worst part is report writing. Now it's better with the AI. I also remember when I was teaching at the GZU, the master's program, I think there are about 18 students. I would need to mark one assignment per day because I couldn't understand what they were writing. But these were master students. But I couldn't understand what they were writing. So report writing skills are terrible across. If you've been in a board, you've been in an executive role, you understand what I'm talking about. You need to call the person and say, what are you saying? And whenever someone comes to you and say, what are you saying? It means they failed to communicate. Okay, so communication, presentations, they are basic, but they've taken others very far because of that. So those are some of the skills that we find to be a problem most of the time. But in Zimbabwe, the biggest challenge that we have done is thinking everyone must have a degree. Okay, let me show you the stats that I have from our database on the distribution. These are from the people that have applied for jobs from our portal, out of 53,000. You can see that 71% have a degree. And these include clerks, receptionists, drivers, they all have degrees. So what happens is that the moment someone comes to your workplace and you hire them, they've got a degree for a job that requires a diploma, their expectations are already high. They expect a car, they expect a good office, they expect but I went to university, but so what? Okay, so that's a challenge. I'm not saying don't go to school, but we seem to be focusing on producing managers rather than people who are actually doing the work. That's why we find most of our organizations are overstaffed at the managerial level. You have got managers who are managing other managers in order to manage the second level of managers. So layers, look at your organization, you probably have 4 or 5 layers from the CEO, 4 or 5 layers of managers who are managing other managers. Sometimes they're managing one manager, that's their subordinate. And they're saying, I'm going to work to manage one person who is a manager, who is also managing another one person below. So we are not developing skills per se, we are developing managers. That's where we are. That's where we are putting most of our money. Look at the number of managerial supervisor development that are going around. When I go to conferences, I find the managers there. I never find the people that do the work there. Okay, even here. I'm seeing managers, but the people that do the work never get an opportunity to go and share. Your sales reps, for example, they never go for any conference. Your artisans never go for conferences. Okay? Your engineer, your actual hands-on engineer, they don't go for conferences to learn more. What you see is the director there, learning things that they're not going to tell the other person when they go back to work. And we are saying we are doing skills development. What skills are you talking about? To develop who? For what? That's a challenge that we need to. So you can see there, in another survey that we did, obviously this is a small sample, we had another survey much bigger. We did find that over 80% of the professional level staff have got a postgraduate qualification. Okay? It's a diploma, a master's, a PhD, and up. But here is the issue. If you look at the jobs in Zimbabwe, most of them do not require degrees. They just require your diploma or certificate to do the job. But we are putting people who have got degrees. People who are manning our receptionists are actually degreed. Okay? People who are all, or you look at your clerical staff, most of them are actually doing their masters in strategic management to strategically manage the clerical work. That's what is happening with most of them. So these people are already disillusioned. The expectations are high. They are not getting the money that they want because they've elevated themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. They've elevated themselves. But the problem is us hiring the wrong people. Okay. We are hiring secretaries who are master's degree holders. We are hiring clerks who are master's degree holders, but the job just requires a first degree or a diploma. Okay. And there is actually a race for qualifications as we speak here. And that is also, unfortunately, indirectly affected the race for title inflation. This one is, everyone is a chief now. Chief this, group this, director this. And what are these people doing? Nothing. So what are you chiefing? If you ask them, you are chief this, but what are you chiefing? You ask them, most of them can't even tell what they're doing. People take this for granted, but the moment you elevate those titles, those people want cars, those people want big offices, want lots of other things. At a personal level, very beneficial, but I'm looking at a national level and development-wise in terms of the country. We cannot be over-glorifying ourselves with these titles when people are not doing anything on the ground. And also, if you go back to research, you will notice that the more qualifications you have does not necessarily translate into more performance. I'm sure you've seen that. Companies are being run down on people who are very qualified. I'm sure you're aware of that. The people that are in the courts being fired for poor performance are qualified. You know, are you aware of that? Overqualified, actually. Okay? The reason being we are ignoring scientific evidence. But scientific evidence clearly states that once you have acquired the knowledge for the role, any additional qualifications that they may not actually, the incremental value is very small. It's good for you as an individual, but in terms of actual output, it doesn't necessarily change. Just look around in your organization. The man who got a master's are brilliant now after that. Yeah? So most of them go to school in order to gain qualifications, not necessarily to gain knowledge. Because what matters is the knowledge, usable knowledge. But most of us have got qualifications but no knowledge. So how are you going to translate and be productive with a qualification that does not have knowledge? Because that's what we have. We have got qualified. we have done, in organization, not the skills audit that you do. In organization, they will call you and say, look, come and do a skills audit. You know what they want? They want to know who has got which qualifications, who has got the experience. 98% of the time, people have got the right qualification, they've got the right experience. Actually, sometimes double, but they still don't deliver. What matters is acquiring usable knowledge, okay? And that usable knowledge depends on your cognitive ability. What is in your brain? That's what matters, okay? That's the key to developing the skills that you want. So if you are going to develop skills for the future, focus on acquiring usable knowledge, not acquiring qualifications. Currently, we are on a race for qualifications. So how do you acquire usable knowledge? We have got modules already. The apprenticeship model is the best model for acquiring actual knowledge. Just look at anyone who has done apprenticeship. They don't talk theory. They fix things, okay? But for those that have gone for qualifications, they talk theory, and they want you to know they've got a qualification. I was reminded recently when I forgot to call someone a doctor, and they were very angry that I didn't. I actually apologized. They said, I actually just thought you were a personal friend. So why would I give you a title when you're a personal friend? But they were really offended. That's because I don't have a PhD, and they are jealous of I'm jealous of the PhD. I said, no, that's not the case. But I apologize. I am now calling them doctor. And so that we can restore our relationship and our friendship. So when you skill people, let's remember what I have already indicated. The guy, if you can put in presentation mode so that they can see. I want to show some graphs there. It's just presentation mode on there. Okay, so then now comes AI. And I've been training some of the people on AI, and some are refusing to learn AI. They said, no, we can't learn AI. It's too risky. That's exactly what happened when the calculator came. They said, if you're using a calculator, you are dull. If you're using a calculator, it means you're not clever. But still, the calculator is here. Who is not using the calculator now? Everyone, isn't it? AI is here to stay. And for the peers, I want to urge you to, if you will leave a lasting legacy, if you can put something together, not necessarily Ministry of ICT, because it's not their forte, it's your forte, to make sure that we capacitate people in using AI across the country. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. For example, I'll show you later on, they did an experiment with consulting in Boston Consulting, and they found that employee productivity went up by 40%. Imagine, 40%. Because they separated into a control group and experimental group. And the experimental group, they found that people who were using AI, the productivity went up by 40%. Imagine the jump that we could get from everyone. We may not get to 40%, but look, it's an enabler that we can't ignore. And easy to acquire because we've got access to technology now. That's an area that we need to look at. And they also found that the top performers, their performance went up by 17%, but they were already good anyway. Okay, so it went up by that kind of percentage. So when you look at Zimbabwe, this is what we mined from the data that we found. So these are the skills that we are focusing on. Managerial leadership. That's what we are saying. Sales and marketing, administrative, IT and engineering, look at the percentage. Okay, operation logistics, look at the percentage. Look at globally what is happening there. Big data specialists, growth. Fintech, growth. AI and this ML specialists, 85%. Software developer. This cybersecurity specialists, look at the growth and where we are. You can see now, this is, when I was speaking there, the first time I was first based on what I had seen and experienced. We mined this data, it seems we are pushing more towards developing managers, okay, who are going to manage nothing, okay? These are producers. We have producing people who are going to theorize and think big without necessarily putting things on the ground. That's the challenge that we will face as a country. I hope that the parents, everyone here can send the message out there. You don't necessarily have to do a degree in order to do well in life. Okay? You don't necessarily have to have a degree in order to have money. You don't necessarily have to have a degree in order to go up there. But in Zimbabwe, the problem is that the people who are leading us, they are all highly qualified, not knowledgeable, highly qualified. So if you don't have a degree, they won't lift you up. There's a bottleneck. Now, if they are hiring a man and a degree, Rokupi, imagine they are even asking you Rokupi, the degree. If they don't like where you went and what type of degree you have, you're out. As simple as that. That's the problem that we have, and it's a challenge that we need to deal with. Imagine parents, how many parents have lost money, their dignity, and self-esteem simply because they forced a child to go into A-level and get 1 point. Do you know if I had tested that child, I would have told them, this one, don't send to A-level. Please don't. Okay? I want to have a degree. He said, yes, they want a degree, but this one can be a software developer without necessarily going to do a degree. Software developers, we are wasting lots of money sending people to do software development at university level. We don't need that. We can teach people in primary school to develop software. By the time they get into secondary school, they are already geniuses, basically. And why are we doing that? And these people are earning lots of money. But they focus in what skills to develop. So my message to you, policymakers and the managers, is that can we rethink why is it that we are putting more money to developing managers instead of developing the people that actually do the work? Because managers don't do the work. There are people who actually do the work. It's good to have good managers, quality, but we are taking everyone en masse into managerial roles. And you know what? The best rate for managerial incompetence in the 50s, they were saying it's around 10%, it's now over 50. So you are taking people into managerial level where they have no capacity to manage at that level. And they fail. And you know, I'm sure you've been managed by someone who is incompetent manager. They're terrible. They think we are fighting them. Everything that we do, you're trying to outshine them. That's a bad manager. Instead of developing, I want you to develop you, I want you to do this. So you think you're going to take my job. That's the focus for them. So I was talking about those titles, senior. Okay, so we talked about the qualification performance paradox. You also know, I'm sure you know, if for those that have looked at the research called the CEO Genome Project, which is the largest CEO study on what actually makes CEOs perform. Majority of the top performing CEOs have no master's degree. Some have no degrees. Okay? But please get me right if there are newspapers. I'm not saying don't get degrees. Do it for yourself, but don't punish the company. Okay? Yeah, do it for yourself, but don't punish the company. We all want degrees, but don't punish the company. Because it seems every parent wants their son or daughter to be a manager. Where would you find a country of managers alone? With no one doing the work? Let's put more people into apprenticeship. Let's put more people into software development, hands-on stuff. If we are going to do graduate trainees, let's put more people into actual graduate trainees, okay? So that they can get hands-on, but you limit the quantity so that you've got top quality. Now we are producing them en masse, these people, okay? So the world is moving away from degrees, I'm sure you have noted. Nothing wrong with degrees, but more degrees does not necessarily mean more performance. She was talking about 7 degrees, and I met someone, I was actually interviewed, said, why do you need 3 degrees? Master's degree, it's actually 3 masters. Why do you need them? No, I use it as a hobby. Wasting your time, productive time. Those years are not going to come back where you're going to spend in a lecture room. Others are making money and you're busy doing the second master's degree. For what? Because let's look at the value. Because human capital can only be capital in the context of what you produce. If you don't produce, there's no human capital to talk about. Okay, here is something that I also wanted to take note of. So these are the things that actually predict whether someone will perform on a job or not. The first one, there is only, I think, one country, yes, you may want to learn from Germany, the way they develop their skills. They've got a program for developing cognitive skills from preschool. Do you remember the time when you were getting milk when you were growing up, for those that are old enough? Nutrition and health matters for cognitive development. If you've got kids that are malnourished below the age of 10, by the time they get into adulthood, you have wasted, they're already criminals, basically. Well, they're afraid to develop the cognitive base that is required for them to be mathematicians, for them to be scientists. Okay, because of disease, malnutrition, emotional abuse, those are the three. That's what we need to focus on there. And part of that cognitive ability is largely hereditary anyway. Okay. That's why I'm sure not in memory, kutodii kutopa kutowedzera kufa mari mabhezari kuti mari chikoro mahara hakuna kana unobuda kana wani. Okay. Then the other issue, the key element is that job knowledge, which is not qualification, as I emphasize. Let's create job knowledge, usable job knowledge. If we can get that, we're sorted. But we are in a race for qualification. Then integrity, we can't even debate about that. It's actually the third predictor of performance in any role, integrity. And then obviously barring any personality defects. I'm sure I've seen brilliant people, brilliant individuals, but terrible personality. Wasted. I remember someone who Oxford, but I went to Sendera Mundari, Oxford, and they've never worked. Yeah, they've never. But my parents are going to my shops, so they were just later at my shops. Oxford, imagine. They're doing accounts there. Eh? The personality was terrible. Very aggressive, fighting with everybody, no relation. There are some people who can't make any relationship. Okay. But also remember, as these personality traits are even more important as you go into leadership roles. Remember, leadership roles tend to attract people with very bad personality. You know that. Your psychopath, your narcissist, they go into leadership roles. That's why you find the prevalence of narcissistic individuals and psychopath is much higher in CEOs than other levels. Because they charm, they speak well, and they're very confident. So when they are talking, you say, this is the CEO material. Then after a few months, we made a mistake. This can't be CEO material. And they ask many boss, they actually regret. Both these people are very confident. Your Trump type. Imagine, that's your Trump type, who is a very narcissistic individual. So this is really where you if you want to really drive performance, that's where. But where we have got influence is the job knowledge. The job knowledge. As I get to the conclusion, I just want to quickly go through some of the slides. You may also want to know that Zimbabwe, as a country, we are ranked in the bottom 25 on innovation, global innovation index. It actually came just now, I think last week. We are also rated in the bottom 25 on global talent competitiveness. Reflect on that. And don't take it personally. I'm just giving you the information. It's nothing personal. I know some people take it to the heart. Okay. These are facts. I know some people say, who did the study and everything. It's okay. Go and do yours. And also bring the results. We will talk about them. What's the bad argument? Say, who did the study and whatever. There, you can read, all studies have got weakness, but it's pointing somewhere. And giving us a foundation to say, why are we not all that good in innovation? But it's evident, even in innovation, what is it that you can say we have innovated? A few, okay, if any. But look at what is happening. Some people are producing a company called the AI with 300 billion. Some people are producing a company called the cloud worth so many billions everywhere. Okay, so innovation is key. Kenya is number one. Okay, if you look at in Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, and Madagascar, imagine with that cool there. Yeah? They're the top four. They're in the top four of Africa in terms of innovation. Just for us to reflect the quality of leaders. I have already, I'm sure you've heard about this Peter principle. We promote people to the highest level of incompetence. Okay. Ndikakutora ipo panobva ndati mawapilot weboeing 767 takatogaramo tinochairai nobabaika. And it's exactly what we are doing. We are taking people who are very raw, who are good foremen, good sales rep, and promote them up there. There is a study experiment that was done that shows that if you promote your best sales reps into a sales manager, performance goes down by 32%. Okay? Because they don't have the skill set for leadership. They are very good as an individual contributor. But running around with all these years that are saying, I don't think that works, they're not used to being challenged. So they fight back. They go back to their usual self and fight back. Okay. So this is the AI study that was the experiment that I was trying to share with you. But I just want to go to the last slides. So, ChatGPT and the cloud release their data. What are people using AI for and everything? Very useful data. And this is what they found. These are the people, weekly active users on ChatGPT, 700 million plus. Daily message, 2.5 billion. 1.5, one message analyzed. This is November 2022 to July 2025. Let's look at that. That's the growth, the explosion of AI usage. Okay? Look at 2024 and 2025. You'll see in 2024, people are using AI for work. Look where it is now. There is more personal use. If you go to the other graph that they produce, you see that people are saying, where do I find the best man or the best husband? Where do I find the best therapist? All personal. If I want to divorce my husband or wife, what should I do? That's what they're using the AI for. Okay. And I think I do have some intuition on why that is happening. AI is very good at that. I think ChatGPT have just said, I think 2 days ago, that they have remodeled their model to be more helpful personally. Okay, but some people will be abused and committing suicide and things like that. But the danger, the biggest obstacle is that most companies actually prevent their employees from using AI. So they go onto their phone and use it for personal use. Because they say, you can't put our documents, you can't use our documents for AI. You can't use AI for work. So people, yes, they love technology, they're using it for personal. That's my theory. Not yet proven, but I think that's one of the reasons. Most companies in Zimbabwe have actually put AI policy to prevent people from using AI. Instead of creating a policy that enables, you identify your AI use cases that are high value, high priority. Not many of them, high value, high priority. This is where we're going to use AI. There are so many examples globally, I can't go into many of them. I marvel when I look at what other people are doing now. Call centers are being closed because of AI. Selling, as in selling, they are using AI. Now, there is a lot that you can do. Look at that data. Okay, so these are the things that people are looking. They are looking for practical guidance, seeking information, writing, and others. 29% the highest looking for practical guidance, on a personal level. Okay, and they also found that 40% also use AI for writing. Looking for technical help, very small, and they're using, so very far away. Demographics, you can see in 2022, 80% were male using. Look at females now, where they are. Good trend there in terms of AI usage. I love that. That growth. Let's look at cloud, which is your Anthropic. They also mine their own data. What did they find? This is what they found. 50% use AI for software and code writing. And I'm sure you now know Google basically is shutting down its software development side because they are now using AI. Any one of you, if you use cloud and Gemini now, you can actually produce an app, even as we sit there. Okay, if we time, I will show you how to actually do that. You can actually produce an app to manage your kids and all that stuff. You can actually do it using this. Okay, and reward your kids and everything. You can actually do that without no help from anyone, on your own. Just having even a free account on Cloud and Gemini. You can do that. Okay, percentage of occupations use AI for 25% of the tasks. Augmentation basically supporting. Let's look at the actual fields that are using AI. You can see. You can see computer nets. Look at business. There, 8.9%. Yeah, so there is still a huge gap. That's why I was urging the PSA. If I would sit down and then say, if we were to really focus on producing an AI strategy for the country, you can look at the Singapore one. The Americans have just released theirs and others, and say we want to go and touch on AI use cases where there's high value addition. We are not going to do everyone, but high value addition will transform this country. Definitely transform this country. And then cognitive versus physical skills, you can see there in terms of AI use, where there's less AI use, what the PS was talking about. We need more plumbers, we need more electricians. Repairing, you can see, only 2% who can apply AI. But the pipe, it's very difficult to apply AI on a pipe. You still need that Bobojan thing to use there. So there is a lot of work, maintenance, equipment maintenance, installation. Those are the areas that, as Zimbabwe, if we were to put our money there, we will definitely transform the country in terms of skills. The jobs, the skills, the retooling industry, because our industry requires artisans. That's where we need to. And look where critical thinking, which is one of the skills, if you look at what is called the Deltas program, a study that was done by McKinsey, I think in 2022 or 2023, they said the skill of the future is critical thinking. They did not envisage AI. And most of the stuff now, AI is so good at critical thinking. It is. Because it is so good at critical thinking. But remember, AI helps people who have got a base. If you know your subject area, AI is for you. If you don't know your subject area, you won't know when AI hallucinates. Okay. I'm sure we've got a case locally. There was also a lawyer in America who cited non-existent case law, and they were struck off the register because of AI. So if you know your subject area, please, by all means, you must read what you have produced and fact check it yourself. The good thing is both AI, Gemini, and Cloud now they're very good at referencing. To put the references now. Do you also know that AI can produce some of the best presentations? Yeah, especially Cloud. There is none that can beat that. As we speak now. Even if you say, here's my material, produce a 100 slides presentation, it will do it for you. Okay. And following the same principles that I was telling you, white background, very few text. We say an idea per slide. That's what you do. Not 2 ideas per slide, an idea per slide. Okay. Okay, so these are just details. When you get the presentation, I think you will be able to look at this. I was just trying to explain. So the takeaways, we can see global work evolution is the fourth industrial revolution is here, basically. Those are things that are going to change. My biggest worry is that most Zimbabwean organizations are still wedded to the status quo. They don't want to move. They don't want AI. They don't want to go and train apprenticeship. To train people. Why is it that they come? Why can we, every company that manufactures, produce something, take 2 or 3 people to do apprenticeship? Okay. The problem now is that we have got people who are going to A level. They do 2 years, they come with 0 points. They go for drugs, that's the only solution. Because how else would you recover 2 years? So the mother, the father are in depression, the child is in depression because of a wrong choice. It's unfortunate that the school psychological service is no longer as vibrant. It's no longer, psychologists are not there. that used to be the linchpin for the future in terms of careers. There are so many, I'm sure even among us ourselves, because we put the memoria, but in India, kind of wrong career. Akusi Congo. No more for good in the. But if you've gotten the advice early, you would go there, that side. I was ending with a story. So the other time I had a doctor, these are parents, a doctor, they married in the medical, the mother was a nurse. So their child was at a boarding school on east, slightly out of Harare. So they brought the child in Form 4 to take our assessments. So in those assessments, we give you verbal reasoning, numerical, abstract, spatial ability, mechanical reasoning, perceptual speed and accuracy, English language, all those, so that we can see your pattern. It was a pattern image, like a graph, produce a graph. So this child then, when the results came out, their app sheet was clustered around arts, soft arts. The parents wanted the child to go into medical field. So they forced this child to say, you must pass the sciences. So every holiday they would come, they go for extra lessons, everything. So the child would do on average relatively well, out of effort. Then when I said, they said, this child should not do the sciences. The father was very angry. Actually, they walked out as I was giving. Then the mother apologized and said, I can't remain here, otherwise the father will say, what are you doing there? So they all left. That was not the first time that has happened. I actually get many of those. So after the results were out, the following, remember when they released the A-level results, they all came back. They came back, the mother and the father, to apologize. The child had passed the arts and got C's and D's in the sciences. And when I asked in front of the parents, I asked the child to say, look, what went wrong? Your parents wanted you to do science. Said they were forcing me. So I would pretend when I go home that I love the sciences, but I didn't love the science. Okay? So you can see the lucky part is that they did this before the child went for A-level. They were going to push this same child with the C's to go for A-level. When they didn't like it, and they actually didn't have the natural ability for science, all of them. Okay. So I think the mother at some stage wrote a testimonial to that effect. Say, look, we nearly put our child in a very bad position because of the choices that were made for the child without evidence. So my advice is that where necessary, get career guidance. There are actually even adults who need career guidance. You may be a manager, but you need career guidance to redirect your career. You're in logistics when you should be pastoring. Okay? You're a pastor, someone must be a pastor. Ministering to people. Because they don't love what you're doing. You may not even have the aptitude you're forcing. Effort does help, but it can carry you so far. Okay? So in summary, I think I would like to say that Zimbabwe has got an opportunity to redirect skills development by looking, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have got countries that are actually doing it very well. South Korea is one of them. Germany, on certain areas, you pick the good things from the different countries, and we put them together as our strategy for the country in order to develop the skills. And I want to emphasize again, degrees are okay for you as an individual, but I think as a company, as a nation, we must learn to build usable knowledge. I thank you.
Thank you very much.